Hey, everybody, welcome back to season two of the HeartStream Musings podcast. I hope you enjoyed season one. I can't believe we're actually already at season two. And it's so funny because I remember when I first started this podcast, I only wanted to do bi weekly episodes. And then I found that I just had so much creative momentum around sharing my experience, the inner child healing, my work, and then I realized I just had so much more to say than I originally thought. And so that is why I started dropping episodes weekly, and I had no idea that it would actually be this creative outlet for me to share. And it's so funny because I ended up speaking to a girlfriend of mine and she started asking me, well, what is the purpose of your podcast? Is it to get downloads or et cetera? And obviously, it is a platform. It is another opportunity for me to share my work. I think with social media, it can definitely be, you know, it's short form content. So you can't express as much. And there's something about being able to not even have video and just it's sort of this imperfect way for me to share. And I originally had an idea of what I wanted to do of dropping the first episode, having it be around, a different topic that was more emotional or spiritual or just, something that came up for me. But then I realized I am getting a lot of questions about what is it like to run my business? How did I know when to leave my 9 to 5? All that stuff. And it's interesting because the last episode that I ended season one on was about, different experiences that I had of quitting my 9 to 5 or just different experiences in my life where I made transitions. I took the leap and there was no net, but the net appeared and that gave me sort of this reference of yes, it is okay to leave. And so this is just I guess it's a part two or more of a continuation about this, and I'm responding to what people are gravitating towards of how did you know, or you inspire me to quit, or I love this path for you, and da 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 da. And so this is just more of logistics slash faith slash spirituality slash magic slash miracles, because I do believe that spirituality and business definitely do integrate. um, Inner child stuff comes up a lot in your business. And if anyone who is an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, where you are literally just working on your own by yourself, the road to entrepreneurship can be very, very lonely. And so this is why I wanted to share what my journey has been. How did I know I wanted to quit and all of that good stuff? I might be repeating myself from the last episode because honestly, I don't listen to the I don't remember sometimes what I say. It's usually just stream of conscious of okay, whatever needs to come up and out through me as a conduit for this expression or divinity or working with just this life force energy and creatrix energy and vibe and archetype, then that's just what comes out. And so I am doing this with no outline at all. Like I mentioned before, I literally just wanted to say, okay, talk about some other topic, but this is just what's coming up for me today. And I'm really focusing on this podcast and platform just to be real, because a lot of the time social media can be very curated. And this is an opportunity for me to share in real time. So here we go. So, anyways, I would say that I actually wanted to be an entrepreneur for the longest time. However, I did not know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So, my parents are immigrants. I'm Filipino, I'm full Filipino. And very much, their whole idea of coming here and emigrating here from the Philippines was to have the American dream. They both came from families that were entrepreneurial. And it's so funny. It's kind of like you have your parents and then you realize, okay, I don't want to do what you did. I'm going to do something completely different. And then maybe your kids end up doing the thing that you were trying to shield them and protect them from. So it's kind of funny that I'm on this journey. Um, and so I, you know, very much had that adopted mindset of you go to school, you work really hard, you get good grades, you can go to good college that can help you get a good job, and you have access to all these different opportunities, and you can make enough money to buy a home, get married, have two kids, and settle down. And that is your life, and be at the company for 10 plus years or more. And that just is not my story. Um, it's very much difficult to, have these feelings come up of not really desiring that, but just still doing it anyway because I thought, okay, if that's the way to do it and that's how I was taught to do it, then I'm just going to do it like that. And what ended up happening was, I remember going to school, and it was always just very a part of my fabric, my DNA of working really hard. I remember being in college and we had finals. And I went to San Diego State, and people there, they just, I mean, they love to party. It's hard to get into now, but back then it wasn't as hard. And I remember all my friends, I was in this co-ed fraternity, co-ed business fraternity, and they were all just partying during finals. And I was just so determined to get good grades on my finals, and I ended up not partying. And I was like, no, I'm going to study. Friends are at the pool, they were at the beach, all that stuff, just enjoying their life. And I just always had that mentality. I always had internships. I worked all my life. I worked all in high school. I just always worked to make money. It wasn't necessarily to save, it was just something that I did. So the idea of working hard was just always ingrained in me, but it was always working for someone else. And so I remember when I ended up, working in the corporate world, I actually, what happened? No. So it was always about me trying to find a good job that would set me up for the rest of my life or whatever. Like my identity was very much tied to work. And I remember having my first job out of college. I was working at New York, and I remember the head of the group, the leader of the group, he ended up getting fired. And I just remember how much he had his identity tied to what he did. And he ended up finding a job maybe like a month afterwards. But I saw how that really shook him up. And I saw how, another colleague of mine, my first colleague ever in the working world post college, she got fired as well. So I remember she got fired and she got laid off for, I mean, basically what it came down to is that the people just didn't like her. And so she ended up getting laid off. And I just remember sort of seeing politics of, oh, wow, you work really hard for a company, and then all of a sudden they can just lay you off on a dime because you're not the right fit. Or, very much likability is trumped more than your skill set, 100%. And I've heard people say this and say that if I what it comes down to is if I'm stuck at the airport and our flight's delayed, would I want to be around you? That's what they base their hiring process and selection on. So there's a lot of emphasis on EQ versus IQ. And a lot of the times when they do hire someone who has a high IQ, they're not culturally a right fit for the company, and they end up maybe only lasting 6 months and then they're kicked out. And so I've heard this multiple times in my career how likability very much trumps the factor of your knowledge, your skill set, and what you know, because that only helps short term. Because if people can't work with you, then what's the point, right? If you don't know how to work with other people. And so I even saw my dad when he got laid off, and just how hard he worked also in his career and how it was just so easy for people. I mean, I'm sure it's not easy when, well, no, that can differ too, right? Like you hear about all the layoffs that are happening right now, and people are literally getting laid off very inhumanely, not even being notified, having their laptops just shut off with no notification. And it's kind of just this, you're treated as if you're nothing when you put your sweat, blood, tears, time that you can't get back, time that's taken from family members to do the work that you need to do to get paid. And it's just this vicious cycle. And so it really impacted me early on in my career of, oh, I actually don't want to play politics. I don't like this. I don't like how you're literally working so hard and people can literally just chew you out and spit you out, and that's it, you know, and just really having your identity tied to it. And so that was very much imprinted in me of kind of like an F you. Like, I'm not gonna work hard for you. But it was just so interesting. And as I'm reflecting and processing this in real time, it's like, oh, it makes, that was kind of the fuel, the kindling to my fire of, wanting to be an entrepreneur. Those experiences definitely influenced me of wanting to be my own boss. And so after having those experiences, obviously I had many different jobs and I realized that there was just such a cap. Um, part of the skill set, part of the game of like working in corporate America or just in corporations is playing politics. You have to manage up. You have to manage down if you have, direct employees that are reporting to you. But it's really about your finesse. How do you say things correctly in the right moment? How do you phrase certain things? Who are you friends with? How do you have those in between conversations, in between those meetings to get something to say? And it's just very, very much politics. And unless you know how to play the game, you're not going to move up. And really touting yourself, being seen, going above and beyond is something that is very valued, but it's also unspoken. And so it's kind of like this game where you're playing, but there's all these unspoken rules, and it's about finding allies to help you know what those unspoken rules are and how to conduct yourself in the rooms, in the meetings, and the conversations. Because a lot of the times, the things that are unsaid are the things that you need to pay attention to more than the things that are said directly. And so visibility is very much a big thing of touting your work, sharing about your work. And it's really funny because I feel like I can I honestly feel like I'm giving a speech to postgraduates about what it's like in the working world, but I just can't believe this is where I'm going, but I don't wanna go there. I have a lot of opinions about that. If you wanna learn about that, you can hit me up. I feel like I can totally be a mentor to people who just graduate. Because I've been in the corporate world for 15 years. But anyways, I just chose not to play that game. I was like, fuck that. I don't want to play that game. And honestly, I think that was very much it inhibited me from moving up, not only the glass ceiling and shattering that as a woman, as an Asian female, woman, but also the bamboo ceiling. The bamboo ceiling of being a Filipino, right? In our culture, it's very much you got to be deferential to your elders. You can't push back. They're right. They're wise. We even have this, it's like you greet your elders by putting their hand on your forehead, and that means a sign of respect. And so it's funny when you go into these white um corporations and they ask you to push back, they ask for your feedback, and they want you to brag about yourself, to celebrate about yourself. And there's almost this humility that's embedded in Asian culture and the Filipino culture. It's like, wait, what? I'm supposed to act a different way? And so that's where I really think DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and just making yourself knowledgeable and educational um, with facts about different cultures will really help you be a good leader because that makes you inclusive. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Um, and so having to act a certain way that was very contrary to what I was taught growing up for however many years that I was with my family, that was very much ingrained with me. That was very, very hard to put on this new identity of just being this sort of alpha woman. And I realized, oh, you're actually not supposed to rely on your boss to advertise you, to promote you, all that stuff. You actually got to do it yourself because at the end of the day, they're the ones in the room fighting for your promotion. And if you don't have a good relationship with them, then you're not getting that promo, girl. Like, you're just not. And so it was just these unfair rules that I didn't want to play. And I think subconsciously I realized I just like wanted to make my own rules. And it was so funny because I'm the type of person where if something doesn't light me up, I have a very, very hard time doing it. I can't hide it. I can't fake it. It's very obvious. And people can see when there are certain projects that I do that I'm very lit up by. I go on it like full force. And there are plenty of times where I had previous employers who were just like, you know, you like they just didn't know how to work with me and and tapping into that access of joy that I had, the momentum that I had, because they all know that I was like a really hard fucking worker. Like, no joke. If you know me, ask any of my friends. If I want something, I will fucking do it. I think that's why I'm succeeding in this entrepreneurial game, because it's something that I genuinely fucking want. And I'm going to do whatever it can to take to make it happen to succeed. And so it's kind of like that immigrant mentality, or like, I think it was Magellan that said, like, burn the ships. Like, literally, you come to a new country, there's no way you're not succeeding. You're going to make it fucking happen for yourself. And so a lot of employers knew that, but they just like didn't know how to direct that energy towards their company, because I already had this attitude of like, imprinted from my very, very first years of working in the corporate world after graduating. Like, you're just gonna fuck me over, Like, why am I gonna give my life to you if you won't give your life to me back? And yeah, it's just like it just really messed with my head, and like that sense of loyalty and allegiance just wasn't wholeheartedly there. And mind you, I do have regrets in my career of missing important things because I was working, right? Like missing a lot of my grandmother's birthdays. You know, God rest her soul, she passed, but I do regret that because I just thought, oh, I have to work, so I can't go to Hawaii for her birthdays. And or I have to go to class because I was getting my MBA part-time, and if I miss this class, then I have to take it over, like stuff like that I miss. And then in retrospect, I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? Not even at that company, it doesn't even matter, like I should have just fucking went, all of that stuff. And so that there's this analogy that a lot of people use of like the rubber balls and the glass balls in a jar, and it's like having to define an experience of, is this a glass ball experience where, it would shatter, or it matters if you miss it and you can't get that experience back, then you should attend that event. Or if you have a rubber ball type of event where it's like, oh, okay, if you miss it, it'll bounce back. You can go, make up for it, all of that stuff. And so there were definitely some glass ball moments that I didn't realize at the time because I was so focused on, you know, thinking that I would be a bad employee if I didn't show up to work, or if I didn't take time off, or I just thought like, oh, work is so busy and I just can't. Um and so it was definitely hard for people to kind of just redirect my energy towards the company and have that sense of loyalty. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm having a really hard time moving up. I'm having a really hard time getting promoted. I don't know, like people are just not seeing me as the leadership, but then also subconsciously at the same time not wanting to move up. So it was kind of like this double-edged sword sort of cycle that I was in. And I remember thinking, okay, well, if I want to make more money, maybe I have to, I don't know, go get my MBA. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go work in the corporate world, um, in consumer packaged goods, get my MBA, do traditional marketing, da da da. They have really great programs for people that graduate from top MBA schools, and they work for all these CPG companies. And now people are moving to tech, so it's probably where I'll go, blah, blah, blah. And so the truth is, the reason why I wanted to do or get my MBA was because I wanted to make more money. I wanted to make more money. Wasn't moving up the corporate ladder. And I remember, while I was applying for my MBA, I was also talking to different consultants at the time. And I had a friend who was a consultant. I met her through this different women's community that I was a part of in New York. And I just saw that she was doing all these different consulting gigs for people. She could make her own hours, she can set her own rates. And I even met this contractor at my job who was a freelancer. She was consulting for different startups. She was also working for our company and she was setting her own rates. And they just got to work on various different projects. And I liked the idea of having this autonomy of not being able to have to um, answer to anyone. And so for me, I thought, wow, well, maybe I can use my MBA to just be a consultant, work at a top four firm, and then eventually go freelance afterwards. And I just thought, wow, okay, that's just what I'm going to do. And so I had that, idea plugged into my head because I was speaking to different people, asking how they were doing things. And then I had another girlfriend who quit her job and she was traveling all over the world, doing coaching, going to Bali. And I just said, damn, I'm so jealous of these people. They don't have to answer to anybody, they can be their own boss. And so what really kind of just drew me into it was this idea of freedom to make your own hours, freedom to work from anywhere. I didn't really think about the money aspect to it. It was just all about the freedom to do what you wanted to do, how you wanted to spend your time, the types of projects you got to work on, all of that stuff. And so I ended up getting my MBA, and I decided to get my MBA part time. It moved me back to the Bay Area from New York. And that's when I started working in tech. And then I realized, oh, wow, you actually make a ton of money in tech. Like, no joke. I remember the first time that I got an offer, I didn't negotiate because I didn't realize that. I just thought, "Oh my god, do they know how much they're giving me? Because I would never make this much in New York. Like, I better not tell them before they kind of renege." And so it was so funny, I didn't negotiate. I didn't even know that you could basically ask for more. Most of the time when you're working in tech, starting for someone that isn't in a technical position like an engineer or something, if you're working in a different position, I was working in communications. Starting rate you can get is 150K. And so from there, obviously you can negotiate up or you get promoted. I think you make, you're always guaranteed 10,000 more every single year. And so I just thought, "Oh my god, okay, I'm not gonna tell them anything." And so I didn't know that I could negotiate up to 150, or that was the norm, until many years afterwards. And then I remember getting a review and my boss had to um, recalibrate my salary and adjust it to market price because she realized that I was not making enough. And I didn't know, right? That's why it's so important to negotiate when after you interview, because that's basically your jump off salary of how much you can make every single year from when you're at that company. And so that's why it's always important to negotiate the first time, because if you end up working for that company, that is the base salary that you're starting off with to negotiate every single year. And so I end up working there and graduate with my MBA. And then I'm realizing, okay, this bug of wanting to do my own thing is coming up. I was working at a big company, even more politics. And I was just feeling super antsy again. And I remember COVID hit and I started thinking about, okay, now that there are no frills, now that there, you know, there aren't any cool amenities of going into work. I'm not seeing my colleagues. Do I like doing this day in, day out? And the answer was, it's not really lighting me up. It's not really fulfilling me. And a lot of people have different opinions. You ask old school people and they'll say, okay, it's just a job. It's a paycheck. It's not supposed to fulfill you. Your job is not supposed to do that. Da, 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 da. But that's just other people's opinions. On me, how I live my life, if I'm doing something every fucking day, I want to be able to enjoy it. Granted, I know it's a balance of doing things that you don't like and also things you do love, but when the ratio of you doing things that you normally don't, or tend to not like, versus things that you do like, then it's time for a change. And so for me, I started to really think, okay, well, what am I good at? What do I like? And I didn't even think about this, but I had gotten certified in March 2021 for life coaching. And if you haven't heard my story, listen to episode 1 of season 1, where I talk about my story, how I got into life coaching, all of that stuff. So, a former colleague of mine, she told me she was doing it. And so I thought, okay, let me do that. And I realized when I was in that certification class that a lot of the frameworks that we were learning, I just knew how to do inherently. I was doing it with other people because I had my spiritual journey, and I was just teaching a bunch of people the stuff that I was learning from different mentors, teachers, guides, spiritual classes, workshops that I was taking. And I really had a knack for it. And I was really good at it. And I really loved it. And so even though I never really thought I was a business person because I was spending so much time and investment in spirituality, I just never knew that I could do business, which is crazy because I have my MBA. People will always say that to me all the time, like, you have your MBA, you have your MBA. Like, I'm sorry, but if you don't know, the hardest part of your MBA is actually getting into the college and the admissions process because you have to do a lot of the heavy lifting of taking a test and all that stuff. That is way much harder than actually being in business school. In business school, it's like literally 2 to 3 years of your life, and you're just skimming information. You are just skimming information. You're just networking because what it gives is just gives you the access to networking. If you want actual experience, if you want to learn how to do business, it is all about experiential. You cannot tell someone what to do, how to do it if they are only just reading it. You need to actually learn by doing. It needs to be applicable. And so people say this, well, it's like, yeah, but I read about it in text. I read fucking case studies. Like, that doesn't make me a savvy businesswoman. I'd say a lot of the education really comes from the companies that you're at, thinking about how do they run things culturally, what's their systems and processes, what's, the biz operations, all of that stuff, the operating mechanisms, everything. And so that's where you just really take note. And if you really want to learn business, listen to earnings calls of what actual metrics are being touted as you know, the numbers that people actually care about, because that has to be the answer for the public shareholders of, okay, I'm betting on you. If the earnings are up, the earnings are down. This is why, because you're not selling. What are your revenue metrics? Like, all of that stuff. Like, if you want to learn business, just fucking listen to earnings calls. Um, Super tangent. But anyway, anyway, literally stream of conscious. That's how I'm doing these podcasts now, because it makes me have more pleasure and fun when I do them instead of sticking to an outline, whatever. If you don't like it, don't listen. Okay. Anyway, do you feel how fiery I am? That's just like where I'm at in my business. Anyways, and so I end up doing the certification, realize I'm really good at it. And I didn't do anything with it until a year afterwards of being serious, because I thought, well, I had that mentality. I need to, use my MBA because I got my MBA. I paid like over $100,000 out of pocket. I think I paid 150 out of pocket. Um, thank God I don't have student loans. That is something I am very fucking proud of. So proud of. And so I realize, let me get serious about it. Let me see if I, want to do something about it. And so I start coaching for free. And this was in February 2022. And this was after I had tried thinking about trying to switch to different jobs. Maybe I needed to do a different communications job at a different company. Then I realized the grass is not greener, it's just another shade of brown. And it's the same. It's the same, different company, different culture, same type of stuff, same type of work I would be doing. And it'd be like dating someone just with different colored hair and a different hat, like outfit and a different accent. That's what that would be like. And so I realized, okay, I don't want to do the traditional corporate route again. Maybe I actually do want to venture and do something on my own. Maybe I do want to do something that lights me up. Maybe I do want to do something that doesn't have anything to do with money being the motivation behind it. And then I realized, okay, well, I got that certification in life coaching. Maybe I will do it. And so I ended up coaching a bunch of people for free to see if that was something that I really wanted to do. I had maybe 5 to 7 clients at the time, and it was fun. It really helped me, got to learn and experience. Wow, okay, I really love working with people one on one capacity. These are the type of people that I am gravitating towards. This is what I like about it. This is what I dislike about it. How do I want to structure it? How do I want to change it? Let me see if I can do it. And so I ended up hiring a business coach to help me figure out the different ways of setting the foundation. And so this is where I'm really going to get into the timeline of what really prepared me to leave my 9 to 5. And so I ended up hiring a business coach. She helped me with the foundational work of who is your niche, who's your audience, what are your values, how to do content creation, how do you build your know, like, and trust with an audience and moving people through the different stages of awareness. What does your posting schedule look like? What are your platforms going to be that you want to market yourself? What does your offering look like? How do you do sales? All of that stuff. So it was a lot. I honestly thought that once you declared yourself a coach on social media, that you would have clients. And then I realized that that's just a bunch of bullshit. I think a lot of times people try to sell you on this idea that if you're working for yourself, that your life is all roses and you're great. But it's because they're trying to sell you this fantasy, this idea, but they don't really go behind the scenes of their business and talk about numbers. And that's why I love people that are super transparent to what's going on in their business, because it gives me a realistic picture of what I'm getting into. And so literally I was very disappointed when I didn't get, however many people. Granted, I've never run a fucking business before, so how was I supposed to know that you need people in the pipeline? You need to tell more people this and all that stuff. That is for another day. But again, I mentioned the know, like, and trust. And so it takes time for people to know you. It takes time for people to like you, and it takes time for people to trust you. So, for people that don't have any notification or experience or awareness of who you are, it is a longer lead time to actually convert them. And so I realized for myself, wow, okay, this is taking longer than I thought. And then I remember I was working with my website designer at the time. We worked at the same company, and she said, "Hey, one of my colleagues actually just quit and she's a coach full time. Maybe this is something that you can chat and connect with her with." And then I realized that she is a money coach for entrepreneurs. And I'm like, this is dope as fuck. I'm like trying to figure out if I want to be an entrepreneur. And she really sold me on the idea of how do you manage your money, or how do you save 100K on variable income and manage your money. And so, shout out to Gina Knox. She is on Instagram. You can find her. She has her website. And so I reached out to her, and that's the program that I joined, of really thinking, how do I set the foundation for my business, of how am I going to create these processes and systems for money, for managing it, how to do it, how to sell, how to manage my mindset in order for me to make money, which is something that's a completely different skill set than coaching. I'm serious. People think that coaching and being an entrepreneur is just such this reality, or not reality, this fantasy that you're just going to be making a ton of money while you're, I don't know, eating oysters in some tropical island because people are snapping photos of them traveling all over the world. But then little do you realize that maybe they're living off of credit cards, or, maybe they're selling a program and they don't have any fucking people that are signing up for it, and they're like shitting bricks behind the scenes. Like, people just don't fucking talk about that. And I think I have a real um that's a real challenge for me, because I just want to demystify that for people. Honestly, it's like I'm very passionate about my business and helping people and like being a self-love coach, but then also there's another side of me that's like super fucking passionate about business. I based in San Francisco. I have a community where I'm around all these entrepreneurs and people that work in startups and co-founders, and I love talking to them because we get into the nitty-gritty about business, how to do things, how to iterate, how to pivot, and that's the type of mindset you need to succeed. And so that is just kind of like my fire and my passion. And sometimes I think, oh, I can't have an outlet to talk about that stuff. But it's like I can't be divisive in my business because essentially, I am a package. I am who I am. And maybe someone might think, oh my God, she should not do that, especially she's trying to sell self love. But it's like, you know what? Right now, I'm all about throwing away the fucking rule book and, just pivoting, trying things out, figuring things out as I go, because that is the mindset you need as an entrepreneur. Experiment, pivot, learn, iterate. Like that is the whole cycle. And so, anyways, I ended up thinking, okay, I have like no idea what the fuck I was talking about. But anyways, um, and so yes, I signed up for Six Figure Savers. That's a program that I joined. And then that just kind of set me on this trajectory. I ended up thinking, okay, this is going to be a test. I am going to do my coaching as I'm doing my 9 to 5 as well and seeing what happens, seeing what works out. And if I like it, maybe I'll try and do it full time. I don't even know if I like it yet, but I'm going to try it out. I've always wanted to be a coach. Um, the only coach that I knew at the time was Gabby Bernstein, and she was so big. She was so big. I found out about her in 2011. She was just so big. And I thought that I didn't know many coaches at the time who could make a living off of what they were doing. And I just didn't see it. And so that was just never something that I thought that I would be able to do. And so I had my doubts about it. Um, Not only it in the industry, but then also myself. Could I really do this? And so a lot of the limiting beliefs started to come up. And then I remember that I got my first client and I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I started working with her and it was awesome. And then I just kept trying to show up and sell more and do all of those different things. And then I realized, oh, it's taking longer and I was starting to get impatient and all of that stuff. And that was just really, really difficult for me because I had this belief of, well, I thought when you show up on Instagram and you're doing posts that you're supposed to just get DMs and discovery calls. And it just takes a long time. If people don't know you, then like how are they going to find you, first of all? And so there's just a lot of things you have to do. And you have the garden analogy of planning your business. You got to fucking till the soil. You got to make sure the soil is good. You have to make sure you're watering it, planting it. And so a lot of people told me it takes 1 to 3 years to actually turn a profit on your business. And I just thought, what? What? And so because I knew that timeline that was given to me, I said, okay, I am just going to focus on getting used to building the muscle of what it's like to have my own business. And so that's what I essentially focused on. It was never a timeline at that point of this journey of I'm ready to leave my 9 to 5 because I needed to make sure that I knew what I was doing. And I'm very much a self starter. I don't have a problem giving myself, creating a routine for myself, assigning myself things, doing projects. I'm very much really good at self direction if I'm passionate about what I'm doing. And so I remember thinking, okay, like let's try and do this. And so I did my routines of, you know, finding or just posting on Instagram, getting used to that, and, having a website, talking about it, offering my services for free, um, doing different types of skill sets, practices, all of that stuff. And so I remember thinking, okay, this is something that I can do. And I just remember stressing myself out because I wasn't making as much as I wanted to. I wasn't getting any clients, and I would write content and it would resonate with people, but it wasn't converting. And I was just think, well, what am I doing wrong? And sometimes as an entrepreneur, because you have this fallacy that you're in control of everything, but sometimes a client is just isn't ready. You can say all the right things in the fancy sales landing page, but there are so many different variables and factors that influence a person converting, right? First of all, their like relationship to money. Do they feel they can invest in themselves that much that you're asking for? What is their willingness to pay? Um, all of that stuff. Like, are they even ready? Do they think they're worthy of receiving the services that you're offering? So there's a lot of emotional stuff. So when you think about coaching, to me, that is strictly an emotional purchase, right? Are you fully, understanding or meeting the client where they feel like they need to be helped emotionally at that level? Like, where are they on their hero or heroine's journey? Do Are they ready to answer their call to adventure of changing their lifestyle? Because a lot of people are so reluctant to change, they would rather stay in the known, even if they're miserable, rather than try and leap and feel the unknown and understand and how to navigate that. That's just psychology, and that's very much different. But anyways, so I really thought, I was getting really frustrated with the amount of momentum my business was. I just had so many freaking ups and downs, and I was dealing with a lot of money wounds and having that come up and really tying my worth and my identity, because when you are an entrepreneur and you are selling yourself, when you are talking about your personal experiences, you do kind of take it personally of, why is this not resonating? Am I not getting people? You just have all of these doubts and you kind of make it about you in a way, because you are the face, and it can be very personal. But then at the end of the day, what the analogy helped me with was like the dating analogy, right? You can go on a date with someone, right? But if they're actually not ready to be in a relationship with you, doesn't matter how good the fucking date is. There is nothing you can say to change their mind, right? And so, sure, there are certain ways where you can bring it up and say, "Hey, I'm noticing the resistance you have, or what are your fears? Let's talk about it." And so it can be a very, relational experience when you are working with different clients and all of that stuff. But I just learned so many different things about myself. And for me, I remember I was talking to a financial advisor, and he said to me, "Well, if you're thinking about quitting your job, maybe in a year, why don't you stop opting out of your benefits at work?" I work at a tech company. We have something called restricted stock units, where you can purchase stocks at a discounted price because you're an employee. And I had my 401k, so I can contribute money to my 401k. And I'd always maxed out on my 401k. That's just something my dad taught me. So I was younger. I was like, okay, I'll just max out all my 401k, all that stuff, pre tax money. And so I opted out of both of those benefits, stopped contributing to my RSUs. I stopped contributing to my 401k just so I could have cash on hand. Because the thing for me with being an entrepreneurship, some people will tell you, oh, you should just stay at your job until your business gets momentum and you actually know that you have product market fit, meaning that you have a viable product that people actually want. You're getting traction for it. There's a demand for it. And so that gives you validation that this is something that has a slight chance of success. And so there is that option, right? Waiting. But I already knew that I didn't want to be at my job. And so I was like, all right, I can either wait till I have more clients, which I'm finding out is taking me fucking forever at this rate that I'm going, or I could just save the money and create a runway for me that felt financially safe for me. And I, went back and forth on it all the time because my doubts started to come up. And so it's so interesting when you're trying to really fulfill your desires and manifest anything that you do want. The world, the universe just really tests you um, with how bad you actually want it and what are you willing to do to get what you want. And are you willing to do anything to get that desire, to make that dream happen? Are you willing to put in the work, essentially? And so said, okay, well, I'll save. And so I just remember thinking, going in this hamster wheel of, I'm not getting enough clients. I don't know what's going to happen, blah, 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 but I'm saving money. And I ended up investing a lot in my business in the beginning because I was hiring different coaches, I was joining different programs, I hired a web designer, and that's just like all of that stuff is not cheap. It's really expensive. I invested so much in my business, and luckily I'm able to put it in my taxes uh, because I didn't make a profit my first year, which makes sense. It was your first year. I just launched it publicly June 2022. And so I saved, and there was no actual, well, no, there was an actual moment. And so I remember, talking to that financial advisor. It was fall of 2022. And so that began my savings journey. I was in the Six Figure Savers program. I was learning how to manage my money before I even had fucking money in my business. Um, and so I was just getting this education on what would it look like if I had the money? How would I manage the money? Practicing with that, doing the exercises, hiring a business coach, continuing to do that. So it's kind of like going to the gym, not looking fit yet, but you know that the stuff you're doing is going to get you fit. So that's a lot of the stuff, the mental preparation that I did to help me leave my 9 to 5. And then I just had this moment where, and then I got on a second client, which was amazing. And then I just kept thinking, wow, I'm really good at this. I got validation from it. I can help people. I can change lives and all this stuff. And then I, I remember just having this moment in March 2023 of having this desire to quit, right? I mean, I had that desire to quit even beforehand since I was already saving, but it just really hit the nail on the head of, this is something that I really want to do and I think I can do it. I'm saving money. I'm starting to get clients. I think I can do it. And so I ended up going to this retreat. And I remember being very nervous about quitting and leaving my job because it was a secure paycheck. At that point, I was making $175,000. I had golden handcuffs. Work was pretty, I knew my work inside and out. And I had already built a brand at the company that I was a hard worker. And it wasn't as hard for me anymore in the beginning when I first worked there. And I just remember thinking, I'm really scared to leave. I know my parents really want me to have a corporate job. What does it mean if I leave? Can I survive? What does it look like? Literally having to fend for myself, feed myself. I'm worried about my savings running out. Is it ever going to be enough? Increasing the savings number and then, pushing back the timeline. Well, I just always found excuses of when I should leave my job. There was never the right time. I pushed back my quit date so many times throughout the year. And I remember speaking to someone and she said, just set the date. Because she had done it. She was like, just set the date. You're never, ever, ever going to find the right time. You know? People tell me that. That's how it's like with having kids. Like you're never going to be ready. You're never going to be fucking ready. But for me, there was just this emotional shift of, I didn't want to do the work that I was doing anymore in corporate. And it was very obvious because my business started picking up. I really wanted to devote more time to it. And when you start to do something you love and you kind of pin it against something that you are not so excited about, you want to just have all of your energy and give it to the thing that you love. And so I had two very contrasting experiences. And I said, wow, like I want to spend my time the way that I want to. I want to be the master of my own schedule. I want to be able to work on things that I want to do. And so it became very much a selfish pursuit of really trying to do something out on my own. And I had a job where I was doing leadership communications and I would be writing for different people in their voice. And as my voice started to take shape in my business, me selling myself, me telling my stories, I started to get, you know, more confident and say, I only want to write for myself. I want to express myself. I want to do this. I want to be seen. I'm ready to be seen. I know I can do this. I want to do this. Give me a shot. And so, even though the leadership capabilities I wanted to hold weren't within a corporation, I wanted to do it within my corporation. I wanted to see if I can do it my way and lead my own path and forge my own path. And so that's what ended up happening. I had that shift where I realized I just didn't want to do the work anymore at the corporate job. And that was the emotional shift that was for me. It was a lot of experiences and time in the making of that, a lot of behind the scenes was that emotional shift, but it's like you don't know when you're changing in the moment. It just happens. It's kind of like when you fall out of love with someone in a relationship. It's not like you plan it. It just happens over time where you start to grow apart little by little, little by little. And you start to change and you evolve and you realize you're both at this place where your lives just don't converge anymore. And it's not even parallel at that point. It's just different paths and acknowledging it and owning it and figuring out what to do from there. If you want to try to come together and, you know, rebuild again or go your separate ways. And so for me, I had the idea of, okay, I want to quit. Then I had that, emotional mindset shift. And so I went on this retreat and I said, okay, I'm not going to make any rash decisions. Mind you, I was thinking about this since June 2022. And mind you, February 2022 is when I really thought, could I do coaching? So March 2023 was when I went to this retreat. So it had been my mind for a while. And I remember going to the retreat and really thinking, okay, I want to get clarity on whether I should leave. And I remember seeing two of the women co-facilitating the retreat, and they were Asian women. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. They're entrepreneurs, they're doing it full time, first gen immigrants. They're like me. I can do that. And then on the retreat, there were a bunch of other women who were all entrepreneurs. I thought, what the fuck? That's amazing. And even my roommate, she was an entrepreneur. She had always been an entrepreneur. I remember asking her, how the hell you make money, girl? Like, it was just so funny. And, one of the women that I carpooled with, she was an entrepreneur too, and her company just got bought. And I was just around all these women that were just such expanders for me that really expanded my eyes and my mindset of, oh, I can actually do this. And it was so interesting because one woman told me her husband spent $100,000 on coaching. And I was like, what? That's amazing. Can't believe people that are out there that are spending and dropping that much money on coaching. And then another woman, she said that herself, I think she spent like $30,000 on coaching that year. I thought, what? I'm hanging around with the wrong people. Because I had that mindset, I had that belief of who's going to pay me for my services, right? Who's going to want to pay me? And when you start to change that mindset, when you start to be around people that are actually doing the things that you desire, then your perception starts to change. And so, really, really think about the people you surround yourself with and how they think and how you want to think. And is that helping you or hurting you? Is that helping you get towards the finish line or away from the finish line, not even attempting to sprint or run or any of that stuff. And so I it was so interesting because the universe was just really showing me signs of like, yes, you can do this, even though it's going to be hard for you, even though it feels like you don't have support from your parents because you're doing something that's obviously different from what they want you to do. But you need to do this for yourself. And I knew at the end of the day that if I didn't do this for myself, I would have that as the biggest regret. And I just had to give myself a fair shot if I was going to do anything, right? If I really wanted this for myself, because it's always been on the background, it's always been on the back burner. And it was like where the rubber meets the road, you really got to fucking do it. And so I remember just coming back and realizing, okay, I think I'm ready. And it became so easy because once I made that decision, things just started lining up. And when you know that you are in flow with the direction of your life or that you're doing the right thing, it's because the universe literally convenes and works with you to make that shit happen. I kid you not. Read The Alchemist too. And so I remember I was like, okay, I need to notify my boss. I need to ramp down on projects. And so I created this plan. And then I realized, oh, I'm actually going to have a one on one with my boss who happens to be in town. Easy. I'll tell her this week. Okay, 3 weeks out, I'm going to quit. And then all the projects I was working on, they were already ramping down to begin with. So my last 3 weeks were super chill. And it just kind of aligned. And at that point, I had built a runway of 8 months to quit my job. Um, and that's just building numbers. And I want to be transparent. Yeah. So I saved 40,000 um, of cash. And I decided, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna see if I can live off of it. I wanted to give myself 6 months, but then I gave myself like 8 months, and then I got more money from, getting paid out for my time off. And so that worked out as well. And so I did. So yeah. So it's like originally I don't know, I wanted like so much money to quit with, but there would just never be enough. And so I wanted to bet on myself. And the minute that I quit, until now, so we're in what? We're July 1st. Um, I have a total of 8 clients, 8 one-on-one clients. And that was only having, I quit when I only had one. I had two. One person stopped, and then I had, or we ended our container together, and then I ended up getting 8. And so that just shows you, like, you just never know what's going to happen. Um, there are definitely days that are ups and downs. Um, no one can tell you when you will be ready or not. It's very unique to your own situation. No one can force you to jump out of the plane. But I will say this, I had more conflict in deciding whether or not I should leave versus me actually leaving. That was the hardest part. The hardest part was waking up, getting so fucking stressed out, and having those thoughts kind of take over and hijack me of, oh my God, what if I'm not going to be able to feed myself? What if I become homeless? What if I have to move back in with my parents? What if? Um, to actually just doing it and then realizing, oh. And so it's funny in retrospect because if I can be an older version of myself and tell that Lisa back then, maybe 6 months ago, I'm like, girl, you got this. You're gonna have 8 fucking clients when you quit your job. Da 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 da. You're gonna make so much money. All this stuff. And I would have quit sooner. But the thing is, you're not ready to make decisions until you're ready. And no one can tell you when to do things. No, it was just a lot of, people ask me, is there this perfect formula? There is no perfect formula because I am not you. My belief systems, the way I experience life, the way I grew up is different from you. Financial needs are different, right? Like I don't have any kids, it's just me, and my partner right now. Um, and so really looking at, there's a logistics side of it too, of like what are your actual expenses? How much do you feel comfortable with living with? Some people are just like, oh, 3 months, 6 months, or 8 months, or a year, or it doesn't matter, how many months you have saved. I just want to have $500,000 or $100,000 or $200,000. Like it's very unique and specific to you, but ultimately it's what is your nervous system capable of handling and regulating at that number. And so if you have a certain number in your head, then folk take baby steps. Where can you save? Where can you offer more of your services to supplement the income that you're making from your corporate job so that you can add that to your savings goal? um, or maybe it's setting a date, and that is the catalyst for you to quit, as opposed to the money. It's very much unique to you, but you will only know what will happen when you actually do it, because you can sit there and commiserate and just have all these what if thoughts about what will happen, or you can just actually do it and see what happens. Um, and so for me, not only, opting out of my employer benefits to have cash on hand was great before I could actually see the validation of the clients, was the way that I did it. And I also had a lot of faith and kind of testing it out, teasing it out, seeing if this is something that I liked, building that muscle of being an entrepreneur. But I will say that doing the entrepreneurship full time is very much different than doing it part time when you have your full time job, because you are doing it's like eventually your passion becomes your job. And so that is the new lesson that I'm learning now of what are the things that actually light me up, and creating a business around joy, pleasure, creativity, fun, play, all of that stuff, and really recognizing that and actually creating a list of, okay, hey, I tried this experiment, I wasn't so happy about it. Noting that drains me. um, but really being able to align myself to what makes me happy, because I get to be my own boss. And, even though I am my own boss, there are days when I get stressed too. And I work really fucking hard. I like work. I've never worked this hard in my life, honestly. But there's something about the experience of knowing that the direct input is, matches my output. Also with luck, you know, also with that. And I'm a hard worker. I try a lot of different things. I always try to do, things that really push me, and I have really big goals, but then I also know that I can't fall away from my center of having fun. And so that is the lesson that I'm learning right now. But, you know, I will say another exercise that has helped me is Kundalini. Kundalini was one of my foundational spiritual practices as I was going through this journey of entrepreneurship and quitting. So I did this, and I'm going to link it in the show notes. I did this creativity block Kundalini exercise, which was super helpful, and that it literally helps you bust through the blocks to your creativity and prosperity. And during that time, on the 40th day, which was so fucking crazy, that was my last day of work. Like I had no idea that I was going to have this momentum to quit, or, do it in that amount of time when I decided it. But that was the last block to my creativity and prosperity, which was like super gnarly. And then channeling the abundance of the universe, the energies or the universe's abundance, I did Soba Kriya. And I did so basically you do these kriyas for 40 days, and they're just more of actions for you to do to really help with your electromagnetic field. And that was just super powerful. And so, I like a little bit of mysticism, spiritual practices, foundations, um, and also just business knowledge, expertise. having different people that I can turn to when I have questions. I have a really good network. I know that when I first started this journey, I built a network of people that I could turn to who are also on the same path, because trying to talk about it with people who weren't, who were in the 9 to 5 just was detrimental, in my opinion, because they didn't understand the desire, or they weren't as supportive. And so I do have a very good, tight knit network of people that can identify, that resonate, that give me advice, that consult me on certain things. And so I'm just so, so, so grateful. So if you are, starting out on your entrepreneurial journey, just surround yourself with people who are doing the things that you want to do. Ask for help. Never stop asking for help, because this road can be very lonely. It can feel like you're out there, no one understands you, no one gets you, but all you have to do is just ask and tell people what's going on, and they will help you. And so I think that's all I'm going to talk about with this. There's so much more that I can say. I have so much to say about that, because it's for me right now, it's like, how do you apply spirituality in your business? And I am actually going to do a talk. I'm being invited back to Six Figure Savers to do a talk on how your inner child shows up with your relationship to money, because that is something that's very real and true. And so, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know. It was something that was very definitely different. It was personal still, but it was personal about my business, my journey, the spirituality behind it, the mindset, all that stuff. But just let me know if you enjoyed it. I love talking about it. I totally riffed on it. I'm looking at the time now. It's an hour and 6 minutes, and I have got to go because I'm late for a barbecue. But if you do want to work with me, I talk a lot about inner child work, self love stuff, and basically connecting you to your inner truth, right? In this episode, you just saw how I had to work through a lot of the mental blocks, a lot of trusting, faith, surrendering, being patient. And those are the things that I really like to employ when I'm working with different clients, of how do we help you heal those wounds so that you can actually live a life that you are in love with? How do you connect to your inner truth? How do you stay devoted to your path even though other people may not understand it? And I will talk about that in another episode of, just the emotional aspect of, what does it mean to forge my own path, even if my parents didn't necessarily understand it? Because that was the thing that definitely prolonged my timeline of taking the leap. Because if I left my job, then it meant, oh my God, maybe my parents won't like me. And how that relates to the wild woman archetype, or all the stuff. Obviously, I have like a lot of creative juices flowing in me right now. I'm like so sad that I have to stop talking and head out. But that just means that I just have so much to say, and I can't wait to share it all with you for season 2. This season, I'm gonna have a lot more guests. I booked out basically the whole season full of guests, so it's gonna be fucking juicy. I hope you listen to it. I'm really excited to bring people on to share their experience, talk about how they got into their line of work, how they followed their inner authority, their truth, their self love journey, different practices they use that can also help you connect to what really lights you up and have the courage to do what you want to do. And so I hope this episode serves you. If you want to work with me, you can follow me on Instagram, or you can check out my website, lisamaycoaching.com. I have one-on-one offerings right now. I have a wait list for the next round, which starts in November. I'm advertising it now because it's for the 7 souls that really, really, really want to heal their inner child wounds and transcend their patterns and connect to their inner truth, and just really, really, really create a cosmic home within themselves. And so Thank you for listening. But before I sign off, here's my question for you today. What are you doing to fill your self love cup and connect to the little you? All right. Bye, everyone. I will catch you next time.